Hey guys, it's Miss Fiala. I just wanted to go over today's lesson with you. Today is Tuesday, 4/21. So when you open up the attachment, here's your FSA countdown page. If you scroll down, here is your worksheet page for today's lesson. Today's lesson is on adding and subtracting mixed numbers. Okay, and I just want to go over some of the questions here on your FSA worksheet page. Most of this page is on just adding fractions. Okay, and remember when we add fractions, if they have the same denominator, all you have to do is add the numerators. Same with subtracting. If they have the same denominators, you just have to subtract the numerators. Okay, and that's all you have to do for 1, 2, and 3. Number 4 is the different ways to express 5/8. So you have to find the answers to all of these and see which one of these equals 5/8. For the last one, that's actually on our lesson for today. So for today, we're going to be finding the sum. Sum is a keyword for addition. So we have to add 2 2/3 plus 1 2/3. And I'm going to show you how to do that in our lesson for today. Remember, you do have the answer key sent in an email. So when you're done with this, you can check your work on that answer key. And if you have any other questions, you need to message me on Edmodo and we can set up a private Zoom lesson, okay? And I can go over some of these. Alrighty, so let's start our lesson for today, adding and subtracting mixed numbers. I'm going to turn this around so you can see my board. Okay, adding and subtracting mixed numbers. You're going to have to do that a lot probably because a lot of times with, say, recipes, you might need 2 1/3 cup flour and you might have to maybe double that or triple it for to make more of your recipe. So you're going to have to add mixed numbers or subtract mixed numbers, okay? So it's really important that we know how to do this. I'm going to start off with adding mixed numbers. And if I were you, I would probably write some of this down because there are steps to follow. This can be a little bit tricky. So we're going to add mixed numbers. Step number 1, when we add mixed numbers, and I'm going to give us an example here. For example, if we have 2 2/3, plus we have to add 1 2/3. Okay, this is my example of adding mixed numbers. So remember, when we're adding, you have to look for those keywords also. What keywords mean you're going to add? We know sum means we're going to add. We know if we're finding a total, that means we're going to add. We know that that word and can sometimes mean to add. If we're finding something all together, that means we're going to add, okay? So look for those keywords. Alrighty, so step number 1, we're going to add the whole numbers. Okay, so for example, my whole number here is 2, my whole number here is 1. I'm going to add those. 2 plus 1 gives me 3. That's step 1. Step number 2 is to add the fractions. Okay, so what are my fractions here? I have 2/3 plus 2/3, and I kind of use this little caret to do this, okay? So 2/3 plus 2/3. Remember, when we add fractions, we just add the numerators, the top numbers. So 2 plus 2 gives me 4, and that's going to stay over 3. Now, I cannot leave my answer like this, so we have a step number 3. This is called an improper fraction, where the top number, the numerator, is bigger than the bottom number. So we need to change the improper fraction to a mixed number. Okay? Alrighty, and if you want to, I would write these steps down to help you with your worksheet page, with your Imagine Math lesson, and with your quiz this week, okay? So we have all of these steps. Now we need to take that 4/3 and change it to a mixed number. How do I change an improper fraction to a mixed number? Divide. We divide the top number by the bottom number. So I'm going to divide 4 divided by 3. How many times can 3 go into 4 without going over? 1 time. 1 goes on top. 1 times 3 is 3. That's what I subtract. 4 minus 3 is 1. That's my division problem. Some of you leave your answer like this. That's not my answer, okay? So when we do our division, The number on top of the house is my whole number, one whole number. The number that's left over, your remainder, is your numerator out of the denominator will never change. So I got 1 and 1/3. 4/3 equals 1 and 1/3. Some of you will leave that as your answer. That is not the final answer because remember we had 3 wholes here. So now I'm going to take that 3 wholes and add, what did I get here? 4/3 equaled 1 and 1/3. So 3 plus 1 and 1/3 gives me a total of 4 and 1/3. Okay, and that is my final answer. Alrighty? So I'm going to erase this, and now we're going to do a few more of these problems together, okay? Alrighty, let's say we have 4 and 3/5 plus 2 and 4/5. Okay, so step number 1, when we're adding mixed numbers, is to add the whole numbers first. 4 plus 2 is 6. Step number 2 is to add the fractions. 3/5 plus 4/5. Remember, you just add your top numbers, so 4, 5, 6, 7/5. My last step is to change the improper fraction to a mixed number. So now I'm going to, on the side of my paper, I'm going to divide this, 7/5. The top number divided by the bottom number, the denominator. How many times can 5 go into 7? Once. 1 times 5 is 5. 7 minus 5 is 2. Okay, so now what mixed number did I just make there? The top number is your whole number. Okay, so I have 1 whole. The bottom number is your numerator, and you can write this down too to use to help you. Okay, so now I have 2 as my numerator out of, what's my denominator? The denominator doesn't change, it's staying a 5. That is not my final answer. That's what 7/5 equals, but I also have to add that to now my 6 wholes. So 6 plus 1 and 2/5. 6 plus 1 is 7, and then I just add on my 2/5 there. 7 and 2/5 is my final answer. Okay? Alrighty, let's do another one. Alrighty, say we have 3 and 4/5 plus 1 and 1/5. Okay, same step. Step number 1, add the whole numbers first. 3 plus 1 is 4. Second step, add your fractions. 4/5 plus 1/5 is 5/5. Now, this one is tricky because some of us will leave it like this. Okay, we can't leave this like this because remember, what do we have here? 5/5. When the top number and the bottom number, the numerator and the denominator, are the same number, that equals 1 whole. So 5/5 actually equals 1 whole. Now I have to add that 1 whole to my 4 wholes I have here, and my answer is 5 wholes. There's no fraction with it. So my answer isn't 4 and 5/5, it is 5. Okay? Sometimes you might get an easy one where you do not even have to change an improper fraction to a mixed number. For example, if I have 4 and 2/6 plus 3 and 3/6. My first step, add my whole numbers. 5 plus 3 is 8. Second step, add my fractions. 2/6 plus 3/6 is 5/6. This is not an improper fraction. The top number is not bigger than the bottom number. So I can leave it like this, and that's my final answer, okay? Some of them are that easy, okay? Sometimes I know some of you like to, I write mine across like that when I add them, but you can also write them, for example, up and down. So 3 and 4/6 plus, let's say, 4 and 2/6. Not 4 and 2/6. Let's do 4 and 3/6. Okay? So if you want to, you can write it out this way as well. The steps are going to be the same. So we're going to add our whole numbers. 4 plus 3, 7. We're going to add our fractions. 4/6 plus 3/6 is 7/6. And now we still have to do our last step. We have to change, that's an improper fraction. The top number here is bigger than the bottom number, so we have to change it to a mixed number. So I'm going to divide. 7 divided by 6. 7 divided by 6. How many times can 6 go into 7? 1 time. 1 times 6 is 6. 7 minus 6 is 1. Remember, the top number on top of the house is your whole number. What's left over, your remainder, is your numerator out of, the denominator doesn't change, it's 6. That's not my final answer though, because I have to add 1 and 1/6 now to the 7 wholes I already have. So my final answer is 8 and 1/6. Okay? And that's how you can add your mixed numbers. You can do it across like I was doing it, or you can do it up and down like this. Okay? Either way. If you have any questions on adding mixed numbers, you can send me a private message on Edmodo and we can set up a private Zoom meeting to go over this a little bit more, okay? Or you can re-watch this video because I do have all the steps written out for you and I just did 4 examples for you. So you can re-watch to see exactly what did I do and that can help you with yours, okay? Now we have to subtract mixed numbers, okay? For example, say we have 3 2/5 minus 1 4/5. Okay? For subtracting, I do actually like to write it up and down like this, okay? And there are steps to subtracting, just like there were steps for adding. So step number 1, I'm going to subtract the whole numbers, just like with adding the whole numbers was the first step. So subtract the whole numbers. Okay, so I'm going to do 3 minus 1 gives me 2. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not going to subtract our whole numbers first. We're subtracting the fractions first. Okay. Subtract the fractions, sorry. So I have to see if I can do 2/5 minus 4/5. Can I subtract 2, which is my top number here, minus the top number here, which is 4? Can I do 2, take 4 away? I cannot do that. So I cannot subtract the fractions. So my step 2 now, just like with regular subtraction, if you can't subtract, you have to borrow. So step 2, we're going to regroup. Okay? If you need to, you don't always have to regroup. Okay? So now here's my step that I'm going to regroup. I can't do 2/5 minus 4/5. So I'm going to borrow from my 3, my whole number 3. I'm taking 1 away from that 3. It's going to become a 2. I took 1 whole away. So some of you want to add 10 to this because that's how we do regular subtraction. But this is different because we're talking about a fraction here, okay? So I took 1 whole away. If I look at this fraction, what is a whole for this fraction? Remember, a whole is when the top number and the bottom number are the same. So my denominator here is 5, which means my numerator would have to be 5. So a whole, I'm taking a whole from here, and I'm adding the whole over here. But I'm changing it in the form of a fraction. So I have 2/5 plus 5 over 5. That is equal to my 1 whole I took away. So now I'm going to add the 2/5 plus the 5/5, the whole I carried over, and that equals 7/5. Now I have, and I'm just going to put it down here, 7/5. Now can I subtract my fractions? Can I do 7/5 minus 4/5? I can. 7 minus 4 is 3/5. Okay? Now my next step is going to be subtract the whole numbers. Okay? So 2 minus 1 gives me 1. So my answer is 1 3/5. Okay, I know that was a little tricky, so I'm going to do a few more of those examples, okay? Write down these steps so you have them to help you, all right? All right. Let's do 5 3/7 minus 2 5/7. Okay, so So my first step is subtract the fractions, okay? So I'm going to do 3/7 minus 5/7. Can I do that? Can I do 3 minus 5? I can't. So I have to regroup. My second step, regroup. So since I can't do that, I'm going to borrow from the 5. Take 1 away from the 5, becomes a 4. I borrowed a whole. What is a whole for this fraction? Since the denominator is 7, the numerator has to be 7. So my whole is 7/7. I'm going to add 7/7 to the 3/7 I already have, which gives me 10/7. Now I'm going to go back to that first step and subtract my fractions. Now can I do 10/7 minus 5/7? I can. 10 minus 5 is 5/7. Now my last step, just subtract your whole numbers. 4 minus 2 is 2. Okay, my answer is 2 and 5/7. Alrighty, let's do another one. And remember with our keywords for subtraction, okay, because on your quiz, you might not know, am I adding these mixed numbers or am I subtracting them? Okay, so subtraction keywords, remember, is to maybe find the difference or how much is left over or left, okay? We have other keywords. How many more was a keyword for subtraction. Any words that end in ER. For example, how much greater, how much taller, okay? These are some of your keywords. Remember that for subtracting, okay? You're going to want to look for those keywords on your quiz because you don't know what operation you're doing. All right, let's do 6 and 3/8 minus 4 and 6/8. Step number 1, subtract your fractions. Can you do 3 minus 6? You cannot. So I'm going to borrow from the 6, is going to become a 5. I took 1 whole away from it. Now I have to add the whole over here. What is a whole for this fraction? It's not 10. We're not just adding 10 to the 3. Okay, what's a whole for this fraction? Is 8/8. Remember, the numerator and the denominator have to be the same number. 3 plus 8 is 11/8. That is what I have now. I have 11/8. Now 11/8 minus 6/8 gives me 5/8. Now last step, subtract your whole numbers. 5 minus 4 is 1. Okay? All right, my last one I'm going to do for you. If you have any questions about subtracting mixed numbers, you can message me on Edmodo and we can set up a private Zoom meeting too to go over that. I want to show you one where you might not have to borrow. You don't always have to regroup. And sometimes some of you accidentally do it because you're in the habit of doing it, because a lot of them you do have to regroup, but you don't always have to. So let's look here. My first step is subtract the fractions. 4/6 minus 2/6. Can I subtract 4 minus 2? I can. Yes, I can. 4 minus 2 is 2. I have 2/6. And 4 minus 3 is 1. 1 and 2/6 is your answer. And that's it. You're done with this one. Okay? Just like the adding, if you don't have to change it to a mixed number, then it's pretty easy. Okay? So make sure to pay attention, because if you can subtract, you don't have to do that regrouping. Alrighty? I wanted to show you one where you just have a whole number minus a mixed number. For example, if I had 5 yards of fabric and I used 3 1/4 yards, how much fabric do I have left? Okay, so I have to subtract 5 minus 3 1/4. Okay? This is the answer I will get. And that is incorrect. Okay, and I'm going to show you why. We are going to still follow our steps. Okay? This, I have no fraction here. Okay? My first step is subtract the fractions. There's no fraction here. But there really is a fraction there. What is the fraction? Well, we are working with denominators of 4 here. I have 0 out of 4. That's what's really there. There's not just nothing there. We can't take nothing and subtract 1/4. Okay? So I really have 0/4 here. So now I'm going to follow my steps. Can I subtract 0 minus 1? I cannot, so I have to borrow. I'm going to borrow from the 5, becomes a 4. I borrowed a whole. What is a whole for this fraction? 4/4. 0/4 plus 4/4 equals 4/4. Now can I subtract the fractions? 4/4 minus 1/4 is 3/4. 4 minus 3 is 1. My answer is 1 3/4, which is a lot different than the other answer I just had, which was 2 1/4. Okay? So remember, if you're subtracting a whole number minus a mixed number, you need to still borrow. Okay? Let me do one more like that for you. Okay? So again, if I have just a whole number and I'm subtracting a mixed number, okay? You don't really have nothing there. Okay, you need to write it as a fraction. What is really there? I have nothing out of, what's my denominator? 5. Now I follow my steps. Can I subtract 0 minus 3? I cannot. I'm going to borrow from the 3, becomes a 2. I borrowed a whole for this fraction. What's a whole? 5/5. So I really have 0/5 plus 5/5 is 5/5. Now subtract your fractions. 5/5 minus 3/5 is 2/5. And 2 minus 2 is 0, so my answer is just 2/5. Okay? Now remember, if you have any questions about any of this, you need to message me on Edmodo so we can set up a Zoom meeting, or I can help you with any of your problems on your worksheets, okay? Don't forget for today, you have to do your FSA countdown page, then you have to do your adding and subtracting mixed numbers worksheet page, and then do your 1 Imagine Math lesson in your FSA Review Week 5 pathway. Do not work in any other pathways. Even if they're still showing up on your home screen, you're working in the FSA Review Week 5 pathway. You need to do 1 lesson a day. Okay, so when I go on and check at the end of the day at 3 o'clock, you should be showing that you have already done 1 lesson. Okay? If you have any questions about that, let me know. Alrighty? Thank you.